welcome to the Red Devils Den. This is the podcast where we talk all things Manchester United, and we're coming off a disappointing performance, obviously 1-1 with West Bromwich Albion. Also, we didn't talk about West Ham last week as well, so we'll touch on that a bit. We're going to look ahead to the Real Sociedad game on Thursday. That'll be an interesting one. We're going to talk about Maguire's comments about referees. But yeah, first of all, I wanted to get Dan's thoughts on the West Ham game. We'll only touch on it a bit, but do you want to go ahead and tell us your best man of the match and that stuff like that?
Uninspiring again, but like I think we knew it was going to be like that. I mean, it was a midweek cup tie. You know, they're a good side in good form. Moyes has made them very, very solid. I mean, he predicted before the game that it was going to be a horrible 1-0 win, and you know, it feels like ages ago now because there were so many unmemorable moments in the game. I think, you know, we made very few chances, and we sort of got lucky with a bit of a pop shot in extra time with McTominay. So yeah, I mean, it was an average performance, and yeah, I wouldn't say there was anything special about it. And man of the match wise, oh god, so you have to give it to McTominay for the goal and for no other reason really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, my memory's fading a bit about that. So yeah, I'll give it to McTominay as well. Can't exactly remember too many standout performances in that. I mean, obviously it was a close game, but you know, we weren't out and out deserved winners necessarily, and we went into extra time. So I don't know what United students' thoughts were on the West Ham game.
I've got nothing to add to that. Basically, it was an unmemorable match, topped off by a decent goal we got a little bit lucky to score with. Thankfully, we didn't go to penalties, and it's pretty much what you expect against a Moyes team. Difficult game. I'm just glad we're into the next round.
Yeah, I don't think Corey will have too much to add to that either. We'll just move it on to the West Bromwich Albion game yesterday. We will start with Corey this time though. Yeah, obviously 1-1, disappointing. Maguire at the end hit the post. Either team could have won it, in my opinion. So, Corey, what were your thoughts on the game? Was you expecting more?
I was expecting the win, to be honest. I wasn't expecting going to West Brom and getting absolutely turned over by relegation candidates.
Yeah, we expecting them to turn them over. Yeah, exactly. Who was your man of the match? Because, you know, I don't think there were too many standout performers. It'd be difficult.
I can't say one, to be honest. I thought they don't. Not one of them deserved the man of the match.
I think if anyone, you have to give it to Maguire, don't you? I think he was the best performer, best of a bad bunch, shall we say?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think they gave the man of the match to a West Brom player, so
yeah,
they gave
that forward they have Diangane, I think his name is. Yeah, he was immense. He deserved man of the match overall. But if we're talking about a United player, I think ultimately it's either Maguire or Luke Shaw. It's Shaw had another great assist, so we can give him that. And Harry Maguire, I thought, was one of our most progressive players, which is a damning indictment of the midfielders and the forwards.
Yeah.
I thought in the West Ham game, Alex Telles was one of the best players. And then when Brandon Williams came on, he looked very confident in defence and driving forward. I thought they were...
Oh, yeah, I remember a bit more now. Yeah, I think Telles was really good in the first half. I think he created 3 or 4 chances, didn't he?
Yeah, because he was like playing like Luke Shaw, getting forward, trying to get crosses into the box.
Yeah, he was actually overlapping as well, which he hasn't been doing previously. He was overlapping Marcus Rashford, and that was really good to see, actually. And
yeah, I thought Henderson had a good game in that West Ham Cup match.
He had nothing to do, but yeah, he did well at doing nothing.
Yeah, he had like two or three saves, but that's why you want from a good keeper. You want him to make saves. You want him to be comfortable in goal. And I thought Henderson had a good game.
This is the thing that with the argument for him being number one, when he was playing week in, week out for Sheffield United, their goal, you know, near enough gets peppered every single week. And I remember a big talking point was that when he comes back to Manchester United and he fights for the number one spot, will he be able to keep his focus? throughout the game. I mean, I know this season specifically, the defence has been a bit leaky, but I remember one of the talking points being, will he be able to hold his focus between those sort of long intervals of sustained possession and attack? And then when the other team come at us, is he going to be able to, be there and be ready? Because he wouldn't have been used to that being playing for a club like Sheffield United previously.
Yeah, I think Henderson's probably going to start in both the games against Real Sociedad, isn't he? So he'll get continued chances there. I think his confidence is probably slightly higher than De Gea's at the moment. I mean, De Gea's like coming up to 30. He's had a bad couple of years, but Dean Henderson, he's on the up. He will be confident. He'll come for those. He'll come for those crosses. Definitely more than De Gea will be, because that's always been a weakness of De Gea's.
I do think in the West Ham game, I think there was one specific point where Henderson really tried to prove a point, and it was when the cross came in and it was quite low, and he used both hands and he pushed it like out into our final third, and I think Fred picked it up. I don't know if you noticed it, but obviously in the Everton game, that's where their first goal came through, and to me it really looked like he was trying to prove a point. It might not have been, but you don't know.
Yeah, I saw something.
Got to pay attention to.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter. It was like a comparison. It was De Gea making the mistake, and then Henderson the game after shoving it away into midfield. Yeah. So he definitely made his point there.
I genuinely don't think it'll be too long now. I think generally speaking, you can get an idea of what Ollie's thinking by listening to Gary Neville. It seems like Gary Neville suggests something, and then 2 or 3 mistakes after 2 or 3 moments later, that whatever he's suggesting ends up happening. And in his post-match comments, he was talking about, or rather, he was on I think the Webby and O'Neill podcast. I don't remember exactly where it was, but he was talking about how De Gea and Henderson are giving Ollie a decision to make, and if he's suggesting that there's a decision to be made, that means Ollie's thinking about that decision. And I really do think the next De Gea howler will be the last De Gea howler.
You think Ollie's sort of feeding information to Gary Neville to some degree?
I mean, you look at any time, it might not be that he's feeding information. It might just be that they tend to view football similarly, having played under Sir Alex, been teammates. They know each other, obviously. But either way, if you look at when Gary Neville got on Martial's back a little bit, soon after, Cavani became our first choice striker. You go back to the summer and it was, United are going to be looking at another left back, when all the media was reporting we're going to be looking at a center back. And then all of a sudden we signed Alex Telles. So, or we were after Reguilon in the middle. But ultimately you see that when Neville suggests something that's a little bit different to the discourse that's generally taking place, he tends to be proven right. And so I think the fact that him and Graham Souness were talking about it, Souness said that it should be Henderson now, and for one rare occasion, I'm going to have to agree with him.
Yeah, it's difficult debate. I mean, we talked about this last time, so I think we'll move away from that now. But yeah, in terms of the West Brom game, obviously, just to sum it up, it was disappointing. But I wanted to talk about the goals for the season, because obviously I'm not sure that we're going to win the Premier League title now. I mean, we're like 10 points behind, something like that now. But I just wanted to put it into perspective, because nobody expected us to win the Premier League title this season. For me, going into it, and I think most other people were expecting a comfortable top 4 race. And a good points tally compared to last season. I think we got 66 points last season, and we got 3rd. Normally it takes about 74 points to get top 4, so around 75 to 76 I think would be a good improvement. I don't think this is a title winning team, so normally to win the title you need about 82 points, something like that. But yeah, Corey, what were your thoughts on the goals for the season, in terms of top 4 trophies? What was your thoughts on
that? Just to get Champions League football, really. I think that's what we need if we can win Europa League or get into the top 4. But realistically, the main achievement for the end of the season was trying to get closer towards what Man City and Liverpool has done over the past 3 seasons. And I think if we get that right wing sorted and a decent centre back, then I think we're good to go for next season.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, get a few players in. I think experience is a big issue at the moment as well. I mean, we brought in Alex Telles, Cavani, especially Donny van de Beek, and they increased the depth. But I think most importantly, they increased the experience of the team. And I think last season when we lost 3 semi-finals, and we lost another one this season, but I don't think those players were playing. Certainly Cavani didn't. But I think they improved the experience of the team, and I think in those important moments, in those semi-finals, they will prove really important. I don't know what United Resurgence thoughts were on that. Do you expect a trophy this season? Or?
I don't expect a trophy. For me, honestly, cups tend to be very fluky. It depends a lot on the draw. So I don't like to judge managers too much based on cup performance. I'm more focused on the league. And over the last 5 seasons, the average for top 4 has been 70.8 points, which is basically 71 points to get top 4 the last 5 years. Last year was the lowest with 66. So you could say we got a little bit lucky in that sense that we finished top 4 at all and got Champions League football. So the way that I look at it is I'm expecting us to improve to that kind of routine top 4 level of performance, something in the 70s as far as points go. Ideally, 2 points a game was what I had in mind, so 76 points, but I wouldn't be upset at 72 or 73. I think any less than 70, and now we're asking questions about the manager potentially in the summer, because we can't have 3 consecutive years on 66 points and say we're making progress. I just don't think that's possible. So unless we won a cup or 2, obviously. So at that point, I think a trophy would become mandatory for Ollie. But otherwise, as long as we get 72, 75, something like that points wise, I think it's a good season. We had a disappointing window. People were thinking we would struggle to finish top half. So some people were saying, oh, the more reactionary elements were saying top half. I think most people reasonably expected we would be the 4th or 5th best team in the league. And so the fact that we're second right now, and reasonably Leicester are the only team close to us right now points wise. So us and Leicester are kind of fighting for 2nd and 3rd as things stand. I think that's a very good season if we can keep it going. But we got to see how the upcoming fixtures go, because obviously we have a lot of the difficult sides away from home now in the second half of the season.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I totally agree with both of what you said. I mean, obviously, firstly, you have to secure Champions League football, because it's a bit of a travesty for this club not to be in the Champions League. But similar to what Resurgent said, you have to secure Champions League football, but you have to do it well. You have to be well within within the limits. I mean, last season it went down to the final day. Realistically, it went down to that Leicester game. And I mean, I suppose this season, if we do finish comfortably within the top 4, say it stays how it is for now, we're 6 points ahead of Liverpool, we're 2nd in the league. That would be progression, because it wouldn't be scraping it. It wouldn't be being the underdogs to get it. Because this club ultimately has to qualify for the Champions League. And I think Solskjaer has overachieved. I mean, to be top for any amount of time in the league, I think was nice for a while. But I think obviously, realistically looking at it, we knew that it was a very, very long shot to be anywhere near the Premier League this season, just because the clubs around us are so far ahead in their development. And Pep Guardiola was a world-class manager regardless. Although we didn't expect Liverpool to quite drop off this much.
You're being generous. They're imploding. Let's be clear about that.
Oh, Liverpool about a stinker.
We shouldn't leave the opportunity to stick the boot in. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they expected Liverpool to fall off. And Man City, obviously, they've probably been better than most people expected this season. I certainly.
I think a lot of it is down to like when we got sort of top second, when we got top of the league. I think a lot of the people now that is coming from quite the reactionary few. Quite a lot of them are quite they're quite young, and they're online a lot, and they get like bantered by their friends and things like that. And I think a lot of this people that want Ollie out and things like that is I think it's more of a desperation to get back to the top, and it's a real impatience in the rebuild, because I think I mean, Solskjaer said when he first came in, you know, it's sort of like a 3-year plan, and we're only 2 years into that. And I think he is a bit in front of where he wanted to be. But I think a lot of the reactions are people that, you know, it's very much a desperation to get back to the top, and I believe that we all feel like that. But you do have to sort of put your sensible hat on. You do have to sit down and think, right, he's building a squad here. I mean, you can see there's proof to linear progression. We're ahead where we want to be. You know, obviously some of the results are really, really frustrating, dropping points to relegation sides and things like that. But like you said, this is not a title challenging team. This is not Ollie's finished product. He's still building this squad. And, you know, it wasn't a great window, like you mentioned before. He didn't arguably get his number one targets. So I think he's doing well.
You know, I never forget a couple of years ago, I think this is maybe back in 2017 roughly. So around the same time into Klopp's tenure that Ollie's had now at United, there's a load of Liverpool fans calling into the BBC 606 saying, oh, you know, Klopp has to go. We've become the old Arsenal team, just a classic top four side. We're not going to challenge for any trophies. They thought they were the biggest club in England. Obviously, we would disagree, but you know, they were making the argument that they're such a big club, they weren't regularly competing for trophies, and so the manager had to go. And I think ultimately the problem is, if you do that, you start the process all over again. And so you have to stick with it. You have to be able to try and make it work and resolve the issues within the team organically, rather than just saying every time something goes wrong, sack the manager. And I think that higher order thinking is what a lot of the FIFA kids and Twitter kids who are basically just out there saying, you know, we lose 2 matches, sack the manager. I think that's what they're missing. That's what they're not understanding. And I think ultimately the board have been good with Ollie so far on that. And they'll continue to do so as long as he keeps showing some progress. But like I said, it's a tenuous progress right now. We're running ahead of schedule. We're second in the league. But, you know, we've picked up, I think, 10 points in our last 7 matches. If that becomes 15 points in, I don't know, 12 matches, something like that, then all of a sudden now top 4 looks like it's in jeopardy. All of a sudden now we're asking questions again about the manager. And I think at that point, legitimately, you would have to ask them if top 4 was in jeopardy. But thankfully, we're not there right now. And I think the fan base doesn't need to react like we're there right now.
No, I think there's clear progress from last season. I mean, obviously you want a trophy, but I mean, we're like 10, 15 points better off than we were last season. I don't know if anyone knows the exact numbers on that, but
I believe it's 12 points.
Yeah, there's no way you can tell either. We're a lot better than we were this time last season, and that's, you know, on the manager, on the players improving themselves, on the manager improving the players, obviously improving the squad, by getting some new faces in. And yeah, I think honestly we can go on to win the league. Given another season or 2, we can go on to win FA Cups, you know, Europa Leagues, maybe win Champions Leagues.
You can even see the progress when it comes down to individual players. People say that, oh, you know, there's that quote from Ollie before the match against West Brom that he was more of a manager than a coach. And, you know, a lot of Twitter got really upset about that. But if you look at it, first of all, Sir Alex worked that way. So if you have a problem with it, you had a problem with the way Sir Alex was doing things. But even ignoring that, you look at the progress individual players have made. Aaron Wan-Bissaka couldn't attack when he got to this club to save his life. He has 2 goals and 2 assists this season. Luke Shaw has 5 assists, which is the second most for a defender in the league right now.
Only one behind Luca Dino as well.
Yeah, only one.
He had 2 assists last season, didn't he, overall, and like 1 goal.
Exactly. So. Scott McTominay, I think, has 7 goals this season. You know, you can see the development of those players under Ollie. Rashford's having a career best year. So while there are some regressions, definitely with Martial and Greenwood, and, you know, sometimes the tactical structure of the team leaves a little bit to be desired, you can see that the work on the training ground is paying off.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to talk about Maguire's comments after the game as well, because you were suggesting that, you know, the referees have been influenced a bit by, you know, other people from other teams, i.e. Jurgen Klopp, because he did say a month or so ago, the referees didn't want to give decisions to Manchester United, or they preferred to give decisions to Manchester United, and the referees are now being influenced by that, Maguire was saying. So I don't know what Dan's thoughts were on that. Do you think they're being influenced? Or?
Yes, I mean, ultimately, you don't like to hear these excuses from your captain. I mean, although he might be bang on, which as a matter of fact he is. But I mean, yeah, I mean, firstly, you don't really like to hear the excuses. I mean, like when you have interviews like that, I mean, you know, you want to. I don't really know what you want to hear. You want to hear something organic, and I guess that was for a change something organic. You know, he's having a bit of moan that nothing's going our way. But you know, hearing the excuses after a result like that, I mean, there weren't enough. I mean, West Brom are 19th in the league. We should be steamrolling these clubs. But back to the point anyway. You know, he is right. I mean, you got the Sheffield United game where, I mean, De Gea, he needs to be stronger, but ultimately it is a foul. He's not even looking at the ball. He's going straight to the back of him. Was it the Burnley game when he had a goal disallowed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was when he climbed over the back. That was not a foul. Yesterday, the penalty, probably soft, but the rules state that the offside, you know, it doesn't matter. And I mean, there may have been enough contact to get a penalty. Maybe earlier on in the season, we would have got that penalty. Yeah, there's one yesterday. I think it was the Arsenal game where Fred got a challenge in the box as well.
Yeah.
That's you know, that's 4 decisions just off the top of my head. And then you got the little things yesterday, like you know, just before half time, we've got like a 4-on-2 situation on the break. You know, they had 3 corners, which should allow for more time, and the referee blows. And then you got when the ball was crossed into the box and the defender puts it behind, and he's in front of Martial, and it's so obvious. And the referee gives it a goal kick. So yeah, I do think Klopp's comments have definitely had some influence. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm not usually someone to complain too much about referees, because if you sort of take your red glasses off, you can see why they made the decision. But when there's things like, you know, 2, you know, pretty much really similar things happen in the same game, one a penalty being given and one a penalty not being given. Like if you look at, as you said, the Burnley game when Maguire had a goal disallowed, you know, versus Lindelof. Yeah. It's difficult to say, you know, that they're not being influenced by comments and stuff like that, or at least that they're not doing their job properly. So yeah, I don't know what United was searching for.
Yeah, so Dan said that you know, it's not nice to hear a captain complaining or, you know, making excuses, and I get that and I understand where he's coming from, and I know a lot of the fan base feels that way. But the way I look at it is, Klopp's comments either did or didn't influence the referee, right? If they didn't matter, then Maguire's comments won't matter. If Klopp's comments are influencing referees, then someone needs to push back on them from the club. And Ollie's not the kind of manager who's going to come out there and say that decisions are going against us. He's going to focus on what we could do better. And so I think that it's useful for the club to have the captain come out in public and say, hey, decisions are going against us now because of what other people are saying. Pushing back on the narrative, if it is influencing the referees, might help counteract that. And so I think it was very smart of Maguire to mention it. And, you know, he's a little bit robotic. He's very even keel. And so it gets a little bit frustrating that you don't get that visceral kind of Roy Keane style anger from him, or even Wayne Rooney at times when things go wrong. So I can understand where people get frustrated with it. But I think ultimately him coming out and pushing back on Klopp's narrative was really important. And I think we're going to see in the next month or so now the decisions that we counted, I think 4 or 5 just now that went against us in the last month. I think in the next month we're going to have much fewer examples because Maguire came out and said this.
I do agree. Like, I love that it came out and said this. And like I mentioned before, you want to hear something organic from your captain. You want to hear him voice his opinion. You want to see him stick up for his teammates, which he has arguably done. I think it was just the timing of when he done it, because the performance was poor. Let's be honest, it was. And where West Brom are in the league, and we should be steamrolling these clubs. I mean, I think it was because it was directly after that. I mean, I think it was in a you know, in another situation. If he'd have done that, say after the Everton game, if we mentioned how much time was left on or something like that, I think it would have may have been, I don't know, maybe not even slightly better, but just after the result, I think that it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you talking about like you don't want to hear him be like robotic and stuff like that. I mean, you can say like it's excuses, but at the end of the day, things like this can decide, a title. They can decide top four, and you need the referees to be on their toes. You need them to not be influenced by these sort of comments. You need them to be professional, and you can blame Lindelof for Maguire, De Gea, but they were fouls on them, and the referees have been inconsistent. But yeah, I think we spent long enough on that. So
there's one more Maguire quote I wanted to touch on. It was the one where he came out and defended Victor Lindelof. He said something along the lines of, "I'm sick of hearing that Lindelof needed to do better or that De Gea needed to do better, and it was a foul on them. The referees need to do better." So it was the one where he defended De Gea and Lindelof essentially. And I'm seeing a lot of fans saying that, they're bad players or they're the ones making mistakes. And from the last podcast, I personally think De Gea should be dropped. But having said that, he's the captain of the club. And I think what he needs to come out and do is exactly what he did, which is defend his teammates and, keep one united camp inside. The people, what are people expecting him to do? Just come out and say, you know what, Lindelof, he's shit. David De Gea couldn't catch a ball in the air to save his life. Obviously, if he did that, you'd have to strip him of the captaincy. So what he's doing is all he can do. So I don't understand the criticism.
I think there were talks that behind closed doors, Ollie was actually being really stern with De Gea because he's not happy with him. But to the public, of course, you defend him because you want to keep these sorts of things behind closed doors. And I think that man management aspect of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is probably one of his best assets. But yeah, moving on, we're going to talk about the Real Sociedad game. I was interested to talk about this because I don't know. We'll move on to the lineup in a sec, but I think the lineup particularly is going to be interesting. I don't know how much he's going to rotate. James could start. Anyone could start. Diallo off the bench, maybe. You never know. It's the round of 32 of the Europa League, and if we were facing like a Lask or something like that, those sorts of players definitely would start. So maybe they do have an opportunity. So Corey, what would you? Don't give me a team yet, but what's your thoughts on the game and how much do you think you'll rotate?
Well, he needs to rotate it a bit to introduce Diallo to the team because he took him to the West Ham game, didn't use him. I understand why we didn't use Diallo because it was nil extra time. We needed to give Wan-Bissaka a rest for the West Brom game, and I think if you play Diallo, Ole doesn't like rotating the system halfway through the game. He doesn't like switching formations. The one time we've seen a player out of position is Fred and left back, or Pogba's the left attacking mid at the start. But I think Diallo might start or be on the bench for the Europa League match. I can't see David starting that match, given the way his recent performance has been. He wasn't involved at all in the West Ham game, so probably that's why Ollie used him for the West Ham game, because Lee Grant was on the bench as United's keeper. We started Henderson. I think he played very well. So if we have Henderson in goal, I think we have a good chance of getting some points.
Yeah, I'll going through eventually these two legs, but yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Mentally points.
Yeah. If there were points, then I'm sure we would get them, but we need to go through to the next round. But yeah, I think he will rotate a little bit. I was going to say something, but I can't remember. My head's going a bit mad, so I'll just give it to Dan. What were your thoughts? Do you think he'll rotate a lot?
Yeah, I do. I think he'll start Dan James, and I think he'll drop Martial. To be honest, I think he'll play Rashford on the left. He might even start Greenwood through the middle, although it's unlikely. And I actually do think he'll start Dan James on the right, because Martial's performance, they've just not been good enough, really. And I think, he may have spoken to him behind closed doors. He came out and stuck up for him yesterday. But I mean, Dan James has been sitting on the bench, and he's going to do a job. Why not give him a start? I mean, like you said, it's the round of 32. We're away. I think, Rashford, Greenwood and Dan James is enough firepower to get a couple of goals there. So obviously Henderson will start in goal, because that seems to be the system, really. Like De Gea in the league and Henderson in the cups. I mean, towards the last stages of the Europa League, if we get through that, is in obviously the cups, he may start De Gea just purely based on experience. But yeah, Henderson will start in goal. I think there's a real case for starting Dan James, though. I do.
Yeah. United Surgeon, do you think you'll rotate a lot?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a decent amount of rotation. I think it'll be less than it would have been if we had gotten a decent result against West Brom or beaten Everton. I think our struggles with regards to our domestic form means he's going to want to try to play people into form. And so we'll see more of the first 11 than we otherwise would have. And just for people who are underestimating Real Sociedad, they had some really bad form in the middle of the season, but they've been in good form the last couple of matches. They've won both of their last 2 in the league. Beyond that, the quality of player is very good. You look at it, they've got people that Premier League fans will recognize: Nacho Monreal, the former Arsenal left back; David Silva, Man City legend in midfield; Adnan Januzaj, former youth prospect with us. So there's Mikel Merino. I think he came through the Arsenal academy, was at Atletico for a while, if I'm not mistaken, and then at Newcastle for a bit. So these are players who are of a decent standard. We're not playing against Lask in the round of 32 like we did last season. This is a very good team, and we have to take it seriously. So you can't just play a reserve 11, but I think we'll see a decent amount of rotation regardless.
Okay.
Would you see Juan Mata make an appearance for this one?
Maybe.
I think
at this point we have to put out a missing persons alert for Juan Mata, so I'm not sure if we're going to see him in this match.
Wanted, have you seen this man?
Yeah, I think he helps out a bit because I think especially if you rest Bruno, you've got Van de Beek, and then especially if Pogba's injured, you've got McTominay and Ferdo. Fred and Matic, there's not much creativity. I mean, Van de Beek's a little bit more of a goal scoring threat. He makes runs in behind. He's not the kind of guy who plays through balls, like Bruno Fernandes does. So I think you need, especially with Pogba, as I said, you need someone like Juan Mata on the right hand side. But the problem is he's like 33. He's not quite the player he was. And I think his best position is as a number 10 anyway. He's not at his best on that right hand side, I don't think so. But yeah, he could be Dan James. Maybe Diallo will be on the bench. I don't think he'll start because it's a lot of pressure for your debut. But in terms of the starting 11, we'll keep it fairly short. We haven't got too much time left on this recording, but yeah, United Resurgent. We went with you last, but we'll go with you again. What was your defense piece?
So for me, their biggest threat is coming down the left. Oyarzabal is their best player, and so I think you have to start Aaron Wan-Bissaka as much as we'd like to rest him. I think we're going to go with Eric Bailly. Harry Maguire plays every game. And then on the other side, I think he has a decision to make. I would personally rest Luke Shaw and go with Alex Telles.
Why wouldn't you use Brandon Williams for this match?
Because they're best players on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I think you have to play Wan-Bissaka because he's really solid.
I can honestly see Alex Telles starting because he featured in the West Ham game. I thought he was good creativity. We didn't. I don't think we saw him at all in that West Ham match. So I think Telles for Luke Shaw. I think that's a good shout. For me, I would start Brandon Williams.
Start Telles and then see how it goes, doesn't you? You really. I mean, some days you can tell it's gonna be fantastic, and then other days it can look very, very ropey. So, yeah.
Just briefly on Brandon Williams. If you play him, I think against Oyarzabal, he's going to get torn apart. I think Oyarzabal is a good enough player; he could play for Barcelona or Real Madrid. And if you put Brandon Williams against him, he's going to get run ragged.
Yeah, I think.
True.
I mean, you could play Luke Shaw
as well.
Again,
but, sorry, no, Karen.
Yeah, you could play Luke Shaw again because obviously he's definitely the best left back at the club at the moment. Like, maybe you need his quality.
Don't we have Newcastle after Sociedad?
We do.
Yeah, you could play Telles there. I mean, balls into the box, breaking them down, it could help. I don't know what Dan was going to say about Luke Shaw or whatever he was going to talk about.
No, I was just going to make a comment in regards to the centre backs. their danger man. Is it Isaac? I don't know if that's how you say it.
Isaac, yeah, the future star Swedish guy.
Yeah. I think if you start Lindelof against him, he's going to get absolutely bullied. I really do. So I really think Bailly needs to be starting alongside Maguire. I just think we look solid we look a better side overall, just more solid.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've got Maguire as the captain, and we can use Eric Bailly's rotation.
I mean, if he's fit, that's the only problem.
Well,
but yeah,
if Bailly isn't fit, we can probably use Tuanzebe, or there is that Lindelof option. But I don't think we can use Lindelof for every single game, because eventually he might pick up an injury, or he might get worn out.
What a bad back, honestly. I don't think Ollie would play if he could avoid it.
Okay, so we've talked about the defence. We're going to move on to the midfield. Corey, what was your thoughts on the midfield? Because we obviously play a 4-2-3-1, so two sort of defensive, maybe box-to-box midfielders, and number 10. What would your three be?
I want to say Van der Beek, but we might use Bruno because he's way better. But we got to give Van der Beek a chance to get into the system. I think behind Van der Beek might be Matic for defensive support. And if Ozrabel is like in the box of the corners, because I'm pretty sure Sociedad go for the 4-3-3 or something like that with left wing, right wing striker. If we can get Matic in that box for heading the corners away, I think that might be a defensive strategy. And we can have like a Fred or something like that wants to get forward, or McTominay. We could do McTominay Fred as like we always have been, but I think we might switch it up for Sociedad because we got Newcastle on the weekend. I think James will get a start, or James will definitely be involved in that match. Is Cavani injured, or is Cavani good? I'm not sure what our situation's like.
He should be okay, but
why don't we stick with the midfield three right now, and we'll come to the forwards in a minute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, right, so go on. What would you give us your three?
I would use Van der Beek as the cam behind the striker, and I would say Matic is, and either Fred or McTominay to go alongside him.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's an argument for Van der Beek because, yeah, he was taken off for like 70 minutes. He didn't look that confident. He looked a bit sad to be coming off. I think there is a good argument to give him another game, but I think with Pogba out, as I was saying earlier, you need to play Bruno Fernandes. You need a playmaker in there. But if we do play Van der Beek in that number 10 role, I think it does make sense to put Matic there because, he has that defensive security, obviously, but he can also play those balls through the lines that Fred and McTominay don't really play.
And a lot of time, as Darling's been at Ajax, he has been like centre mid, not as a cam. He likes to play as a number 6 as well. So if we are missing that.
Okay, so that myth needs to die immediately. He played 6 like a handful of times, and playing 6 in the Ajax system when they have 75% possession in a given match is completely different to doing it at United in the system we play.
No,
he never went as a 6 for Manchester United. Let's be very clear about that for the people on Twitter. I know you weren't suggesting it, Corey. I just want to be very clear on that point.
What I'm saying is, if we have Matic and Van der Beek in there, we could even give Mata run for as many, or use Bruno
as an 8. That definitely makes sense. You said 6 though, and I got worried.
Oh. Now that's what I meant. We could use Van der Beek, Matic, and then like a Bruno or a Mata, because I haven't seen Mata at all this season. Like against Watford maybe, but I think Mata he creates when he does have a good game. So it's interesting if Van der Beek don't play cam, and we try fit Bruno and Mata in, I don't think that's going to work. It's either Mata or Bruno for that cam spot.
I don't think Mata has the mobility that he did. I mean, it sort of depends how he approaches the game. If you want to approach it on the front foot, then attacking quick, then I don't think the game is for Matty. I mean, his football brain is excellent, and he might use him if it is a tight game because he works really well with Donny Van de Beek. But I mean, Reece, you took the words right out of my mouth when you mentioned Van de Beek starting. You said you'd play Matic because of defensive security and the fact that he can make those line-breaking passes into the zones. And I absolutely agree with that. That is one thing that Matic can do. And as well as what Corey said, it does give you a bit of extra height from set pieces, both on our side and their side. But I honestly would start Scott McTominay as well. He's just a box-to-box midfielder, can do everything. Defensive security on set pieces in both boxes. He can make those driving runs, and he can sort of counteract. Because we know Matic is slow. He's getting on. His legs aren't what they were. So he's another player that can sort of drive through the thirds into their half as well with Donny. Because we know that Donny's not a number 10 like Bruno is. Bruno will drop deep, as we saw yesterday. You see him in the midfield. I even saw him at centre back picking the ball up at some points yesterday to try and create something. We know Donny's not like that. Bruno's give me the ball, let me find you, I'll do something with it. Whereas Donny is, I'll give you the ball, I'll run into space, you find me, and then I'll do something with it. So if you play Donny, I think you have to play either Pogba, who's out, or Matic. So I'd go Matic, McTominay, and Van de Beek.
Yeah, I would go with Matic as well. I would go with Fred, and then I would go with Van de Beek. I'm just thinking in terms of you get similar levels of energy from both of them, but I want to give McTominay a little bit of a rest. But I wouldn't be upset if you went with McTominay and Matic either.
You might put McTominay on the bench, you never know.
Yeah, it's difficult because, I mean, Van de Beek obviously played against West Ham and they just struggled to get the ball to him, and he made some good off the ball runs, but I just feel like without Pogba behind him, he's going to struggle. So, do you think there is an argument for obviously playing Bruno, or because United was saying just then you play Van de Beek, and then what mostly said Van de Beek in the number 10 role. So
the way I would get around that issue is by playing Mata on the right wing. I know people say he doesn't have the legs to track back, but he would be playing against an almost 35-year-old Nacho Monreal. I'm not horribly worried that he's going to get outworked or be beaten for pace regularly by Monreal. So I think you can play Mata on the right, and he'd be cutting in, he'd be providing that creative aspect, getting that ball in that Van de Beek needs to thrive in that position. So I think you really want to play the two of them together and have Mata and then Van de Beek at 10, and then I would go with Dan James on the left with up top.
If Mata does start that game, would you see him as on the corners trying to whip it into the box? Because he does provide good crossing ability.
Take the corners, honestly. It's one of his best features. So I think if he starts, he's going to take them, and likewise with Luke Shaw. So I'm not sure Mata would be on anything other than free kicks from just outside the box.
Yeah, Tellez is a top class corner taker for me. He's already got a few assists from that. I think we
have seen the likes of Bruno, Luke Shaw. They've got good crossing abilities. I've seen a lot of assists that Luke Shaw has from the set piece corners, and corners cross. Well, I can't even speak. Somebody normally gives Luke Shaw the ball, and then normally whips it into like the centre of the box. And I think that's where Cavani's best, because nobody can head the ball like Cavani does. Even though Cavani's not the fastest, but his knowledge of the ball, when to jump, how to jump, and what to do with the ball. And I think if Martial, Greenwood, Rashford can benefit from Cavani's knowledge, I think we will have a chance.
Well, he's just got some of the best number 9 instincts you've ever seen. The people have been calling him Mr. Movement, because he just knows. He's got a sort of telepathic ability, where the ball wants to go, where he wants it, how to make the space to drive into, to get away from the centre back. I mean, he splits centre back partnerships. I mean, you've seen it already so many times this season. He's that focal point where the team is struggling, and I think Ollie really wanted that in the summer, because I mean, he mentioned having different styles of play, not being one-dimensional, and I think I mentioned on the last podcast about this group is learning to sustain attacks, and I think he is a massive part of that. I think having a focal point as well. And as well, it helps defensively. You know, when you are pinned back, you know, he sort of gives you an out ball. Whereas if you've got three sort of like inverted forwards and a Martial who will sort of run the channels as well, I don't think he sort of has that. I mean he can, and I suppose he's sort of stronger than he looks, but he doesn't work hard as Edinson Cavani. You know, when you lose the ball in the opponent's half, he will win it back. Whereas, you know, Tony Martial doesn't give you that aspect of his game.
You're absolutely right about Van de Beek's Cavani's qualities, but he's 34 years old. I don't think we can start him 3 times in 1 week, right? He just played against West Brom. He's going to play against Newcastle in the league, you'd hope. So I think you give him a rest in midweek and you go with, I'd go with Greenwood up top, but I think Ollie might consider Martial as well.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't start him. I was just talking about him. I love him.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's an argument for playing Cavani here because you know, we might need him, especially if, you know, we're playing Mata, James, Van Beek, etc. I think we might need Cavani in there because, you know, it just isn't strong enough for me, or it doesn't have enough quality to score, you know, 2 goals or, you know, even 1 goal away from home. I think you need to start Cavani in this one and then maybe play Martial or Greenwood up top against Newcastle. What do you think, Dan? What would your forward line be?
As you know, Resurgent just said, I probably wouldn't start Edinson Cavani, just because, you know, he's 34, he's played the last 2 games, and I don't believe Sociedad are that big a side, sort of at the back. So I think there's definitely a case of Greenwood starting, or you could even start Tony Martial, although I wouldn't personally. And I think against, you know, this Newcastle side, I do think you need a focal point and an Edinson Cavani because they are going to sort of squeeze the middle of the park, and you know, we really are going to have to use the width. And if you're using width, you need someone to whip it into. So I think you leave Cavani. I think you start the Newcastle game. Yeah, I'd love to see Greenwood through the middle. Definitely a case of Dan James to start on the right, I believe, and I think I would start Rashford because, I mean, yeah, you know, his form has been a bit patchy recently. I mean, I suppose you could do with a rest, but you know, if he starts his game and he gets a few goals, we might see it rejuvenate Rashford. So I think I'd start him, Greenwood, and Dan James, or maybe Mata, just because he works really well with Van de Beek.
For Martial though, if Martial's that out of form, do you reckon a few goals and assists might kickstart his season?
He got a few goals against Southampton though, didn't he?
Yeah, but Sociedad have got a stronger team than Southampton. Look at Southampton; they have to play some of their non-best players, and they had a red card in like the 78nd or something like that. Sociedad have a all-round stronger team than compared to what Southampton currently has. So why wouldn't?
Yeah, but I don't think. I think Greenwood's playing too well to be dropped for Tony Martial. I think it was. I agree with that. Yesterday to start Tony Martial over Greenwood. I don't think that was fair because Greenwood's been very, very good recently, even though he's not been scoring goals.
Yeah, I agree. Greenwood's been on form not as compared to last season, but he's had a decent season considering his age. I think he can offer us more in the future. And who knows what Ollie decides, even if he's on the right wing or as a striker. But I think Ollie's going to have a tough decision to make for the Sociedad game.
If Ollie's going to go with Marcus Rashford, as Dan suggested there, I beg of him, please play him on the left. It's his best position. He's settled there, and now we see him getting shunted around to the right wing to accommodate Pogba first, and then to accommodate Martial. You know, Marcus Rashford is phenomenal when he plays on the left wing. Please leave him there and don't move him around for the rest of the season.
I know. When I saw that lineup for that West Brom game, I saw Rashford on the right wing. I was like, oh, for God's sake, we're going to get demolished. Every time we've used Rashford on that right wing, he can't perform, and it suffocates him because I'm not sure what foot he is, but when he performs on the left, he plays like prime Ronaldo. He actually does.
See, here's the thing as well. If you moved him to the right wing to accommodate somebody who is bringing more than Rashford to the table on the left, right? Like, say we had, I don't know, Sadio Mane in like peak form or whatever, or peak Raheem Sterling, right? Or somebody, Mbappe, Neymar, whatever. Someone who is world class to play on the left, and you said, okay, we're going to move Rashford to the right. It's understandable. But Martial is horribly out of form and has the work ethic of a slovenly old man. So there's really no point to playing him at that point on the left. Pogba was in good form before he got injured, but again, he's just as good on the right. So I don't see why Ollie's so insistent that Rashford needs to be moved around. Play him on the left. It's his best position. Don't move him around. He's our second best forward, or maybe third after Cavani and Bruno Fernandes. But either way, he's one of our best attackers. He's got great goal returns on the season. Don't move him. Leave him on the left.
With all this right wing nonsense, wouldn't you not see Martial on the right wing instead of Rashford? Just put Martial on the right wing, so all he can do.
I think we'd be better off playing Brandon Williams on the right wing. Martial is not a right wing player. He's been awful every time he's played there.
Let's go and get
the thing is, when you start Rashford on the right wing, he sort of goes from, you know, his usual position on the left. He sort of goes from like an inverted forward winger. But when he plays on the right, he seems to play like a really old-fashioned left midfielder, like a Ryan Giggs, you know, and he sort of gets to the touchline and tries to get the ball in rather than cutting inside as he usually would.
Yes, I think Martial on the right just wouldn't work. I don't think he hasn't played them in a long time. I think there's a reason for that. James could start. Rashford, if you're playing him, he's got to be on the left. But I think Rashford needs a rest. So he obviously was poor in the last game, that partly because he played right wing, but he wasn't great against West Ham either. So I would rest Rashford. Maybe if we need him, he can come off the bench. I'd play probably. I think about playing Martial on the left, Cavani up front, and then Greenwood on the right, or maybe Greenwood up front, because I think Greenwood up front is eventually going to be his best position. He's been on good form recently. I think he played up front against Watford, didn't he? And he wasn't the best, but he was on bad form back then. I think he's gained some confidence since then. He's still learning from Edison Cavani, or getting into those positions more often. He'll hold the ball up well, and if he gets a chance, 8-9 times out of 10 he's going to score, because he's clinical, and let's say he is a striker. So I think we've discussed the forward line enough. Might as well move on to end it and go for the prediction. So for me, I think it's going to be. I'm going to be honest and go 0-0. What do you think, Dan?
I was going to say 0-0, but now you said it, so I'm going to go for 1-1.
Okay, Corey.
2-1 United.
And then United versus Sujan.
Well, I was going to say 1-1, but now that Dan's taken that, I'll say 2-2.
Okay.
Not confident.
Yeah.
I think we'll get through. I just don't think we're going to win the away leg.
No, I don't either.
No, I think a score draw would help us out a lot. So a 0-0 wouldn't be ideal. They would prefer 0-0 rather than us. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for watching. Give us a like and subscribe if you can. Helps us out a lot. And we'll see you soon.